Minister of Natural Resources on the same issue. The Premier made a commitment last fall, or last spring, I should say, with Nan when they met at the Delta Chelsea Hotel last year. And that was that this government would not go forward with amendments or any way, shape, or form go forward on Bill 191 without the consent of First Nations. It's clear. There's not a First Nations in the far north that wants your legislation. They're here today, the Grand Chiefs and chiefs from various communities, to say, no, put this on hold. Are you going to hold the commitment of the Premier and not go forward with this legislation as promised by him to First Nations last year?
Mr. Speaker, I have visited about 8 far north communities this summer, and I was disappointed when the Standing Committee wasn't able to visit the far north, but it became an opportunity for me to visit those communities firsthand. I was able to spend whole days in communities and look at the land use planning that a lot of communities have already done. We have some communities that are far into the process and some that are just beginning that process. We have a lot of youth that need skill-based training. They need the dollars. They need the capacity. We can put our head in the sand, or we can understand that there is development happening in the far north today. We have a chromite deposit that's happening that we've discovered in the far north, and the world is watching what we do. We need to do land use planning in the north similar to the way we do it in the south. We need to give the far north communities the resources to move forward so we can protect the environment and find the balance on land use planning in the north. Thank you, Speaker.
Supplementary.
Minister, the only one with their heads in the sand is the Liberal government when it comes to this issue. It is clear. Each and every community who resides in the far north, in the area that you're trying to affect by this act, have sent you resolutions by band council. They've had resolutions sent to your office, to the Premier's office, along with petitions saying stop this process. They want to ensure that in the end, if an act does come forward, it is one that will meet with their consent. So I ask you again, will you do the right thing, and will you stop this legislation in its tracks and allow the First Nations to do what needs to be done so that we can actually get it right?
Minister.
Thank you, Speaker. I guess I want to convince everybody today, if I could, that this is just the beginning of the conversation.
Hear, hear.
I think that we've had conversations for the last 2 years about this legislation. We've met with communities that want to do land use planning. We continue to want to have that conversation, but it is a little disheartening.
Members will please come to order. We have guests here who want to hear the answer. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Bill 191 represents a change in the working relationship between First Nations and Ontario in the far north. If passed, this bill will provide a new approach to land use planning, one of cooperation and joint responsibility. It's about community land-based planning that is initiated by a First Nations community and will have final approval, should it be approved. That's historic in the way that we have approached this in the past. It's based on advice that we received from chiefs in the far north. I was listening to them. We continue to listen with them. This is a dialogue. This is not the end of the process. This is just the beginning. Thank you, Speaker.